here I am out in the wilds, and I've just come across this very interesting ring of fungi. I actually know what this is. Even from a distance I can tell this is clouded funnel, and they often grow in absolutely massive rings. This is a comparatively small one. I've just come across this fallen tree trunk. It's been here for ages because it's absolutely covered with different kinds of fungi. I've got hairy curtain crust here and what looks like small stag's horn. Yeah, that'll do. Here's an interesting one. This is called leafy brain fungus. Right, here we are in the studio. As you can see, I've got two sets of watercolour paints here. Top end, best quality, that's what I like to use, and a massive array of different types of brushes that serve different purposes. This is the light bulb that I use. It uses a natural light which casts a natural light onto the painting that I'm working on when I'm working inside. Right, today I'm going to paint some what's called candlestuff fungus. These little sticks, if you like, that have little fingers or fronds on the end. We're going to paint a few of these in watercolour, and you can see the whole process. Here's one I painted just a little while back. This is the same species, but this one's actually painted in acrylic paint. So let me just point out to you that this species of fungus I painted a little while back, and it appears in my book, A Brush with Fungi. And the Latin name for it is Excellaria hypoexcellon. At least I hope that's how it's pronounced, but commonly known as the candle snuff fungus. And here it is as it appears in my book. It's on page 396, and as you can see, there's different shapes, and it has a different look in each illustration. Now this is the original artwork, all painted in watercolour. As you can see, there's these very spindly legs, if you like, and then the very sort of the sinuous fronds at the top. Right, I'm just going to initially draw in 3 or 4 different ones, the ones that I physically have in front of me. I don't use my imagination, and I don't use photographs. I always paint from life. So as you can see, I've got some specimens in front of me, and I'm going to draw them accurately, and then we're going to paint them in watercolour. Okay, the idea for this book really started at least 30 years back. I've always been interested in nature. I wasn't particularly interested in fungi. I was more interested in bird watching. But when I was out bird watching, particularly in the autumn, I would come across lots of different types of fungi, and being curious, I wondered particularly if any of them were edible. So I bought a book on foraging, and that helped a little bit, but it wasn't actually a book on fungi in itself. So I had to buy a book specifically on fungi. And if you're into nature, if you're into bird watching, or if you're into butterflies, whatever it might be, I'm sure you have a massive collection of books on that particular subject. And over the years, since I have developed an interest in fungi, I too have quite a number of books. But I don't have one which I could call a standalone book, a book that has everything in it, in terms of the text, in terms of good photographs and or illustrations. There isn't one that stood out that I could recommend to anyone and say, yeah, buy this book. This book's got everything in it. Because there wasn't one out there that suited everything that I wanted in a book of this type. So I decided 30 years ago, as a trained artist, that I would paint every different kind of mushroom that I came across. And I would paint them in a forensic way. If you've got a book on fungi and it just have photographs, it's possibly just got one photograph from one angle of that one species. Whereas My paintings, I've painted them from the top, from the side, from underneath, and then in cross section, so you can see absolutely everything that's going on. I painted well over 300 different types on this 30-year journey, and 260 of them appear in my book. While I'm painting this, let me just explain the name Candlestuff fungus. As you can see, I'm painting the very, very pale fronds at the top, and then as you can see, the bottom half is actually black. Now, when I first came across Candlestuff fungus, I thought it had something to do with a candle and snuffing the flame out. But then it didn't quite make sense, because when you think about looking at a candle where you've snuffed out the flame, the burnt bit is at the top and it's black, and the white bit, which was the wick, which hasn't been burnt, is white. But as you can see, these are white at the top and black at the bottom. But quite quickly I realised that if you've got a candle snuff fungus when it's looking its best, if you flick it with your finger or poke it with your finger, you'll get this instant bloom of what looks like smoke, but it's actually the spores being released from the fungus itself. And that just looks like you've blown a flame out, where you get this kind of little smoky after effect. And I presume, that is how the name came about. Nothing to do with the wick being black and the other bits being white. I got that completely wrong. It's all to do with just giving the mushroom a nudge and releasing the spores that just look like smoke. So I've got 4 different ones that I've drawn out here. I've painted in the top fronds in the very, very pale grey or white, and I'm just putting in the spindly stick-like stems. And then I'm going to add a little bit of substrate, which is what they grow on. They actually grow on dead wood, so I'm going to paint them emerging from some moss, of which will be wood underneath. You'll see as we work through this. Yeah, on this journey, I actually discovered a species of mushroom that had never ever been recorded in the UK before, so that was quite interesting in itself. There are well over 400 pages, there's 260 different species, the book weighs almost 3 kilos. Chris Packham looked at some of my paintings a few years ago and he was really impressed, and he has very kindly written a very, very nice foreword to the book. I actually self-published because I wanted full artistic control over how this book looked. I didn't want to hand everything over to a publishing company and then they put it together in the way that they wanted. I wanted this book to be put together in the way that I wanted, purely because it's got my name on the cover, and I wanted the book to look its very best. I worked with a graphic designer for well over a year. I used to pop in and see him once, maybe twice a week, and I'd sit down for an hour or so and we would work on this book from the cover through every single page right to the back cover, and I am absolutely well pleased with the end result. The book is being sold by Summerfield Books, who are based in Penrith. This is an online bookseller and distributor. In my bio there is a link to the booksellers. If you go onto my YouTube channel, you'll see some of the clips and you'll see a link to Summerfield Books as well. We've actually finished painting all 4 of the different candle snuff fungi in detail. So I'm just adding in a little bit of green here. I'll work this up so it looks a bit more like moss. Okay, I'm just putting the final touches to the substrate here, and that's us almost finished for this. However, there's a little bit more we can speak about yet, so hang fire. And here it is. Here's the finished article. As you can see, very spindly black branches, if you like, and then the very, very pale fingers or fronds at the top.